She stood right at my fence line, screaming at the top of her lungs, "This land is mine! You can't build here!" I had just finished unloading the last box from my old pickup. The sun was dropping behind the hills, painting the sky orange, when she showed up like a storm in a bright pink tracksuit, waving a folder of papers. I didn't even know her name yet, but the whole valley could hear her voice. "You think you can just move in next to me and ignore the HOA rules?" she yelled, pointing at my barn like it was illegal. I stayed quiet for a moment, trying not to laugh. "Ma'am, this ranch isn't part of your HOA. I bought it fair and square. The county clerk signed off last month." She slapped the folder against her palm and stepped closer, almost into my yard. "You're lying. All of this land falls under our association. We decide what you can build, where you park, even the color of your house." I looked her dead in the eye. "That might be true for your subdivision over the hill, but the boundary stops at that fence. Everything on this side belongs to me." Her face twisted like I had insulted her entire bloodline. "We'll see about that. I'll have you fined by tomorrow morning." I couldn't help but smirk. "Go ahead, but don't waste your printer ink." She stomped away, muttering something about calling the board president. I went back to unloading, but my dog Duke kept staring toward the road, ears up. A black SUV had slowed down, then sped off when I turned to look. That's when I realized this wasn't just a nosy neighbor. Something about her confidence, like she actually believed she owned my land, didn't feel right. I decided to keep the porch light on and the security cameras rolling that night. I didn't know then that she had a plan brewing, and that the next morning I'd wake up to find something nailed to my front gate that changed everything. At sunrise, Duke's barking pulled me out of bed. I stepped onto the porch with my coffee still in hand and saw a big yellow notice nailed right to my gate. "Violation, illegal occupancy, immediate eviction ordered by HOA." I tore it off and read the fine print. There was no county seal, no signature from any official, just a fancy HOA logo and Karen's name scribbled at the bottom like she was the sheriff of the valley. A truck slowed down on the road as I stood there. The driver rolled his window halfway and shouted, "You're in big trouble, man. Karen's got the board on your case. Better pack up." Then he drove off laughing. I felt my stomach tighten. Not from fear, but from the urge to show them they'd picked the wrong guy to mess with. I snapped a photo of the notice and sent it to the county clerk. Within minutes, I got a reply. "This document is not valid. HOA has no jurisdiction on your parcel." While I was still reading that message, Karen marched up the driveway like she owned the gravel under her feet. "Remove that shed," she barked, pointing at the small red barn I'd just painted. "You're blocking our community's view of the hills. It's an eyesore." I said evenly, "Karen, you stepped on my land without permission. You need to leave." She ignored me, yanked out her phone, and started taking pictures of my porch, the barn, even Duke. "These will go straight to the county," she announced, as if that meant something. Then she noticed the security camera above the porch light. Her smile faltered. "You can't film me on my property." I raised an eyebrow. "This isn't your property." For a split second, I saw something in her eyes. Panic, maybe, or the realization that she was on camera. But she recovered fast, stuffing her phone back into her pocket. "You'll regret this," she hissed, then stormed off again. That evening, just as the sun went down, I heard engines. Headlights appeared near the end of the driveway. 2 black SUVs stopped there, engines idling, windows too tinted to see who was inside. Duke's growl turned into a low rumble as the first door slowly opened. The first man stepped out of the SUV wearing a dark jacket with a shiny badge clipped to the front. He moved slow, deliberate, like he wanted me to notice the badge before I noticed his face. "Evening," he called out, voice deep but strangely rehearsed. "We're here on behalf of the HOA.
Got reports you're trespassing on restricted land. Need to see your paperwork. I leaned against the porch post, keeping my hands visible but my phone recording in my pocket. Trespassing on my own ranch? You boys got the wrong address. Another man came around the SUV, broader shoulders, same jacket, same badge, but something was off. Both badges looked too shiny, almost like toys, and neither of them had the county emblem. Duke barked once, sharp and loud, which made the shorter guy flinch. That tiny reaction told me these weren't real deputies. I don't hand over documents to strangers, I said firmly. You got a warrant signed by a judge, bring it up here. Otherwise, you're trespassing. The tall one smirked. Son, don't make this harder. HOA rules apply. We can remove you tonight. That was the moment I decided to let them talk themselves into trouble. I tapped my phone screen through my pocket to zoom in the recording. You're saying you have authority to evict me from private property that I legally own? This conversation's already been sent to the sheriff's office. Karen's face went pale in the glow of her car's headlights. The tall, fake deputy muttered something under his breath and stepped back toward the SUV. Then, without another word, both men climbed back in their vehicles, engines roared, and the SUVs sped off down the road, Karen's tires kicking up gravel as she peeled out behind them. I stood there in the dust, feeling the adrenaline finally settle. I thought the night was over, until Duke's ears perked up again, and he sprinted toward the back of the barn, growling at something or someone lurking in the shadows near my water pump.
I grabbed the flashlight from the porch and followed Duke, my boots crunching on the gravel. The beam cut across the tall grass, and that's when I saw a man crouched by the water pump, fiddling with something metallic. "Hey!" I barked. He froze for a second, then bolted toward the fence. Duke lunged, but stopped at the edge of the property line, barking like thunder. I shone the light on the ground and spotted what the guy had dropped: a small padlock and a folded notice wrapped in plastic. The paper inside said, HOA property, water access terminated, do not use. I felt a chill run down my spine. They weren't just harassing me, they were trying to cut off my water supply. I pocketed the notice, then called the sheriff right there in the dark. By the time the deputies arrived 20 minutes later, I'd already shown them the security footage of Karen's little eviction stunt at the gate. When the sheriff himself saw Karen's face on camera, ordering her men to drag me out, his jaw tightened. "This is criminal trespass and impersonation of law enforcement," he said, shaking his head. "We'll handle it." The next morning, patrol cars rolled into Karen's driveway. I watched from my porch as two deputies walked her out in handcuffs. She was still yelling, still claiming the whole valley was hers, but her words didn't mean much with the cameras flashing and her so-called enforcers already in custody. Later that afternoon, the county clerk called to tell me something that explained everything. Karen had been trying to annex my ranch into her HOA for years, but never succeeded. Every attempt had been rejected because my land was protected under agricultural zoning. She hated that I'd finally moved in and planned to rebuild the ranch house, so she decided to push me out the only way she knew: intimidation. I fixed the water pump that evening while Duke lay in the grass, finally calm. The air smelled of rain, and for the first time since I moved in, the valley felt quiet, like it had accepted me as its rightful owner. As the sun slipped behind the hills, I looked over at the empty road where Karen's SUV used to lurk and muttered to myself, I didn't buy this land to be bullied off it. Not then, not ever. Justice had been served. My ranch was safe. And Karen? Well, she was about to learn that no one screams, "This land is mine," and gets away with it, at least not in this valley.